With Jacoby Thomas's transfer to Miami, every single spring transfer portal player who left Tennessee has now committed to go somewhere else. Which of those players were big losses that the Vols will feel this upcoming year? That is the next question. We're going to play Hot or Cold. Hot or Cold brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com. Which players that transferred are big losses for the Vols? If they are a big loss, I say hot. If they are not a big loss, I say cold. That's how we're going to do this. And let's go ahead and dive in. Let's start with Aiden Bussell. Tennessee offensive lineman Aiden Bussell has committed to the West Virginia Mountaineers. I'm cold on that. Aiden Bussell's not a big loss for the Vols. He wasn't really going to get into the rotation on the offensive line. I think he was just a body when Heupel couldn't recruit offensive linemen to where he needed to. So with that in mind, I think Aiden Bussell is I'm cold on Aiden Bussell. We'll just say straight cold. Jacoby Thomas, who we just brought up to Miami. Well, I think based on what I just said, I have to go hot, right? And I am. I'm very hot on Jacoby Thomas as a big loss for Tennessee in the secondary at safety. Jacoby Thomas to Miami is a huge deal. Tennessee losing him, they're going to feel that. That's a problem. Larry Johnson III to Colorado. I'm hot on that loss. Larry Johnson left because it looks like Tennessee had to go all in on David Sanders starting at right tackle opposite Lance Hurd, but they wanted a third guy because they typically need a third guy in the rotation at tackle. That's how they like to run things, or utility player. Larry Johnson was going to be that, and he probably would have seen a lot of action doing so. Him transferring, it probably was an NIL thing, and it probably was a playing time thing, which led him to Colorado. And it's a big loss. Tennessee needed that extra tackle in this situation, and losing Larry Johnson III, they're going to feel that. So I'm very hot on Larry Johnson III as a loss. Another transfer who left for Colorado, John Slaughter, defensive back. I'm cold on that. I don't think John Slaughter, even though Tennessee needs help in the secondary, as I was bringing up, I just don't think John Slaughter could have been the one to do it. He wasn't able to reach that next level for Tennessee. So I'm actually cold on John Slaughter transferring. Christian Charles transferring to Virginia. Not a big deal. Christian Charles, I'm cold on that. He was locked in at cornerback as well. And Tennessee does have enough depth at cornerback to deal with what they need to deal with. So quite honestly, I think Christian Charles leaving is not the biggest deal. They're going to be fine with Christian Charles entering the portal. He has committed to Virginia. We wish the best for John Slaughter and Christian Charles. Between the two of them, I would say Slaughter is a bigger loss because he could step in at safety, but I don't think he'd be much more help than Idris Farouk or a couple of other safeties on the list. Jackson Matthews. I think you can move Caleb Beasley over. So I think Tennessee would be fine with Christian Charles gone. So I don't think that's a big deal, or John Slaughter for that matter. Dayton Sneed, a walk-on wide receiver who has committed to the North Carolina Tar Heels since leaving. I mean, guys, is there any more of a Bill Belichick style wide receiver? Okay, we're talking about Dayton Sneed, a nerdy looking white dude who walked on to Tennessee. This fits the mold of Bill Belichick, but for Tennessee, I'm cold on him. He's not a loss. Okay, Tennessee's wide receivers. He was never going to play for Tennessee. So Bill Belichick is the type that would make him work, but he wasn't going to work for Tennessee. So Dayton Sneed, come on. I'm cold on Dayton Sneed, guys. We got one more for hot or cold, and I think you guys know who it is. First, hot or cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air, 50 years in East Tennessee. Integrity matters. cityheatandair.com.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
There's your best.
Hot or cold, spring transfer portal entries who left Tennessee, who have now committed elsewhere, which is all of the ones who did enter the portal at this point. Finally, which of them are going to hurt the Vols? Which of them, their losses, are the Vols going to feel? We've gone through all of them. One more, the obvious one, the elephant in the room, Nico Iamaleava to UCLA. Guys, I'm hot on him. His loss hurting Tennessee. I get what everybody's saying. The extra money wasn't worth it. He was probably rubbing teammates the wrong way with how everything was playing out. But We now know, based on the Brew McCoy medical retirement yesterday, that Nico's lack of elite passing attack last year was even less his fault than we thought. Okay, let's break down all the things that were more at fault than Nico. Both tackles playing injured the first half of the season, so he had little protection. The go-to receiver who is supposed to dictate coverage being slow by a step because he was recovering from a broken leg, which messed up the entire receiving core, adding to the chaos, the slot receiver playing half the year with a separated shoulder. Those two things alone, guys, were the two biggest reasons Tennessee's passing game wasn't where it needed to be last year. And Nico Iamaleava was not at fault for either of them. The third one was Nico Iamaleava being a first-year starter. But what was going to happen this year? He was going to be a second-year starter in this system. He was going to have an upgrade at receiver with Mike Matthews, who has a year of experience in the system now, Braylon Staley, who at least is healthy, unlike Squirrel White was, and Chris Brazel at least returning. And at least one half of the tackle situation was going to be better with Lance Hurd returning and looking to be at 100% now. Nico Iamaleava would have been very good for Tennessee this year. And I'm going to say this. Tennessee with Joey Aguilar at quarterback, and I've told you guys this last week, and I'm going to say it again. Tennessee with Joey Aguilar at quarterback would have been a bigger, is going to be better than they were last year with Nico Iamaleava, but they're not going to be better than they would have been with Nico Iamaleava this year. So I'm going to put up the poll question real quick. Tennessee football, Jacoby Thomas commits to Miami. What does this mean for the Vols secondary? Before I put up the next one, I'm going to wrap this up. 53% of you say they're fine. 7% of you say the secondary is in trouble without more help. Now here's the next poll question. Who was Tennessee's biggest spring transfer portal loss? And we're going to go, and by the way, this is pending and fluid, obviously, because they could add another defensive back, which would change things. Because I'm going to put Nico Iamaleava on here, but I'm sure many of you won't name him because you'll say Tennessee got Joey Aguilar. However, I'm going to go with Jacoby Thomas, Larry Johnson III, Nico Iamaleava, and if I'm going to add one more person between those, because those were the only three that I said were hot, but a close fourth for a hot who could have been a hot spring transfer portal loss, we're going to go John Slaughter. All right. You guys vote on that right now. Vote on the poll question. Of the four, I say Nico Iamaleava, Jacoby Thomas, and Larry Johnson III were all big losses. I'm going to say Nico Iamaleava is the biggest loss, guys. I know, I get it. Tennessee got Joey Aguilar, but they put a lot into Nico Iamaleava. He was establishing a rapport with the new receivers, or the receivers that were returning. I don't think you can just look at that and say that Nico Iamaleava is not a big loss. They did not want to lose him. They had to finally make a decision based on the way things have been playing out, but I don't think they wanted to lose Nico Iamaleava. So with that, I'm going to say Nico Iamaleava is the biggest loss. I'm open to Larry Johnson or Jacoby Thomas, but I'm sorry, guys. I'm probably leaning Nico Iamaleava. Now, if I personally am ranking these losses 1 to 10, I think number 1 is Nico Iamaleava. Number 2 is Larry Johnson, because right now Tennessee has to go with a freshman at tackle. So number 2 is Larry Johnson. Number 3 is Jacoby Thomas. Number 4 is John Slaughter. Number 5 is Christian Charles. Number 6 is Aiden Bussell. And number 7 is Dayton Sneed. That's how I would rank the biggest transfer portal losses for Tennessee football in post-spring practice. So during the spring portal window. That is, again, based on who they have added since then, to be fair. If Tennessee goes and adds another tackle and another safety in the transfer portal, rip this whole segment up. If I write a column on it, rip that column up, throw it in the trash. It won't matter. But as of right now, you have to say that Jacoby Thomas, Larry Johnson III, and Nico Iamaleava are all big spring losses that Tennessee is going to feel in the future. And that is a huge problem. Okay. So I think that Tennessee is going to miss those guys. As far as the poll question right now, and we're going to leave it up through the break, but who is Tennessee's biggest spring transfer portal loss? It's getting debatable. Nico Iamaleava leads by a plurality right now, right at 50%. But Jacoby Thomas and Larry Johnson III are each at 25%. You guys keep voting on this. It's tough, but I have to lean with the people who say Nico Iamaleava. I think he is the biggest loss. I got asked, Caleb, what's your excuse for Nico's poor field awareness where Arkansas's true freshman DJ Lagway off the bench and garbage year Carson Beck outplayed him? I gave you the reasons. I think the receivers and his poor field awareness was there at Arkansas. He was seeing ghosts because the tackles were both seriously banged up in that game, so he was getting hit a lot more. And we already talked about the issues at receiver. I have to say that he got better as the year went on, if you notice, when the tackles got healthy. And I think that we're really underrating that issue. And he was also young at that point with the Arkansas game. So I think Nico is going to get a lot better, guys. I do. And also, people talk about the big deep throws he missed on last year. Well, now we're finding out why. Brew McCoy wasn't dictating the coverage the way he needed to because he was coming off of an injury. So Nico couldn't lead guys on deep throws the way he planned to and the way he had worked on all offseason. So look, I think Nico is a big loss. However you feel about him, he's the biggest one. But Jacoby Thomas and Larry Johnson III are still pretty big ones.